It's time to play ball. Welcome to the podcast with no limits. Whether it be sports, current events, or random thoughts, this is the place to step in and stay a while. Your host is a proud alumnus of Rio Hondo Prep, a former minor league baseball umpire, and a man with strong opinions. Welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast and your host, Matt Hersema.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Get Home Safe. We have a very special guest today on our Friday edition of the podcast, someone that I've wanted to have on here for quite some time. I'm wearing my Rio Hondo Prep polo shirt for those of you not watching on YouTube. And today, someone very important at Rio Hondo Prep, pretty much the person who's in charge of it all. We're going to be joined by none other than Marsha Johnson, also known as Dr. Johnson, but I'll let her tell you about all of her credentials. We'll brag on her a little bit. I would say her greatest achievement is helping me pass Latin class back when I was a junior high student at Rio Hondo Prep. She was Miss Keeler back then. She had a brother who went through the program as well, the great Keeler family. She has since married into the Johnson family, which is synonymous really with Rio Hondo Prep football. Her husband, Randy, actually calls the offensive plays on Friday nights for the boys out there. So she's definitely watching from afar, watching closely to the Rio Hondo Prep football program, as well as all the other athletic and academic programs at Rio Hondo Prep. When I heard Dr. Johnson was the new principal at Rio Hondo Prep, I knew it was in very good hands, and I wanted to bring her on the program to talk about the great school that I love so much, and also just give some insight what it's like being the principal after kind of being affiliated with Rio for so long, and now to be given the reins, to be given the keys, really the keys to the castle, if you will. That's got to be a little pressure, maybe. I don't know, maybe not. She's done so well in her academic professional career. It's cool to see that she is the principal of Rio Hondo Prep, my alma mater. She also won a basketball championship back in the early 90s. If I remember correctly, there were some really good girls basketball teams there. So maybe she'll fill us in on some of her old teammates, maybe some of her favorite leaders from the past. We're going to talk pretty much all Rio Hondo Prep, and of course, her background, how she found Rio Hondo and everything. So let's not burn any more time. You guys are here to listen to her, Mrs. Marsha Johnson. Let's bring her on the program today on the Get Home Safe podcast. Okay, it is now my privilege to be joined by the principal of Rio Hondo Prep, who just finished her first full school year as the principal, taking over the keys to the castle, if you will. I'm now joined by Dr. Marsha Johnson. Mrs. Johnson, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be with you.
You know, you have had an extensive academic career, but I got to tell you, I think your greatest achievement, you're a mother of three now, you're the principal. I think your greatest achievement, though, is helping a young Matt Hersema in like seventh grade pass Latin, explaining that and getting him through it. So bravo. It's been many years, but one of your greatest achievements.
Matt, you were my first class teaching at Rio Hondo Prep. So wow. I survived it, made it through, kept teaching. So
that is crazy. We were your first class, seventh grade?
First class, yep. I remember I have such great memories of that class. You guys were so much fun.
Oh, I hope they're all good.
Yeah.
We were a little rowdy bunch. We wanted to, play ball and stuff, but you kept it fresh. I remember always being like, you tempted us with like pizza parties or something like that all the time. Study group, study sessions. That's what they were. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I tell people today that I took Latin in high school, and they're like, cause junior high and high school. And one's like, what, why would you do that? I'm like, I don't know. It's just what we did back then.
Makes you feel smart though, doesn't it? Like, I took Latin.
Oh yeah. I remember all the little, and I was like, I heard about this in seventh or eighth grade, Latin. I've always wondered how far back does Latin go at Rio? Has that always been a thing?
I think so. I mean, Mrs. Orsburn, I don't know if anybody taught it before her, but yeah, I mean, it goes way, way back. It's always, big part. I'm sure we had some Spanish in there back in the day too. And German, Mr. Johnson taught German, I remember, but there's always been Latin.
So how did, we'll get to a lot of other things here, but just while I'm thinking about it. So when we were your first class. So when you either volunteered or wanted to teach at Rio Hondo, however it worked out, did you get to choose your subject, or was it kind of like, hey, we have a Latin opening. Do you know anything about Latin?
So I started teaching the year after I was at the University of Illinois for a year. And when I decided to come back, I needed a job. So I called Mrs. Dowd, who was principal at the time, and said, hey, you got any openings for me? And she's like, yeah, we can put something together. So I just took what she gave me, which was Latin and algebra. And I'm not sure what else I taught that first year, but then I maybe some statistics. And then I added in psychology the next year. So she just put together a job for me so I could get going. And
yeah. More thorns in my side. Algebra. How could I forget? You taught me that as well. Got through that. Latin was definitely the most fun of all those statistics. Yeah. All that stuff. Oh man. Gave you all the hard stuff. It sounded like, Mrs. Johnson, I knew you back as Miss Keeler back then, right. Many, many years ago. Now, you've married into the Johnson family, which is, synonymous with the RHP football and everything else. But where do I begin here? Well, let's just talk about being principal of Rio Hondo Prep. It's been one full year for you. You guys just had graduation last week. What's the last year been like? Is it everything you expected? And I must add, what a crazy time to take the principal job in 2021.
Yeah. So, it wasn't something I was necessarily expecting to do. It's been a challenge. When I took the job in, end of May or June, COVID was winding down. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to, launch back into a totally normal year. Wasn't quite that, but, it definitely wasn't 2020. That was a real challenge. So this year has just been great. We had a great senior class behind me, and I've got Edwin Ixta as my vice principal, who I really wanted to bring on the team to support me. And he's really added a lot. There's been a lot of new things that have happened this year, and I'd love to take credit for all of them, but really had nothing to do with, if we've been on campus, like we've had this real, huge makeover to the entrance. I have no part in that. It just kind of appeared before me. So that was awesome. And then Edwin, along with Tiffany Horton, inspired by Ryan at his school, put together this new house system where we have, kind of like Harry Potter style. We have the 4 houses that the kids are part of, and they compete. And it's just added a real energy to the school that I think has been really positive. So it's been a really great year. Great staff supporting me. So all in all, super positive. But definitely it's been a challenge.
Well, we'll see, to tie it into sports. Now, all the great coaches, they don't do it themselves. They hire really good assistant coaches. Your husband, and you've coached before. You know how that works. You're only as good as all the people right beneath you, all your assistant coaches.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, sounds like you put some people in the right places, which I think is, what the good head coaches do, or principals in this case. What can you tell me about what were you doing teaching wise before taking the big plunge into being the principal? Because that's a big change, just from being not the just teachers, but from being a teacher to all of a sudden in charge of the teachers and the entire school. Yeah.
So I've been really working with Mrs. Orshburn. I started working as Mrs. Orshburn's assistant in RHLA when she was in fundraising. And so we've always had a great relationship. And then I've been the college counselor for like 20 something years. So I've had that role. I've only been teaching 2 classes for quite a while. I teach psychology, AP psychology and AP statistics. And then the rest of my day has been kind of administration, like just assisting with different things, curriculum. I've been in charge of that for a while. So it was sort of a natural fit for me to take on some of the roles, but I've never really been in charge before. So that was, a big step. But honestly, the teachers, everybody's, totally on board with the mission and just does what they do. And so my job is basically just like, hey, is this happening? And they basically say yes. And so I wouldn't want to do this job anywhere else. It's just a great place to teach and to work. So.
Now being the college counselor, yeah, that was definitely, your thing. And it's not a huge student body, but I will say from my experience, you had a hands-on approach with all the students that went through the RHP high school, kind of giving them information for college, different ways for financial aid and things of that nature. Do you still continue to work with the students, or is there someone else who's filled your spot?
So Kirsten Kirby, who graduated a couple of years ago from Cal State Fullerton, she's taking on that role. I've been working with her the last year, just kind of showing her the ropes, but she's really taken off and doing a great job with that. And, being just out of college, she's right in the mix of knowing what to do. That's been a great transition for her, and totally confident she'll probably do it better than I did, because she's just got all those skills and works really well with the kids. So.
Well, there's a big tribute to you that in the sense of you've done a good job taking RHP students and getting them to the next level, we'll say, because it's not always easy. And I think Rio still takes pride in the sense that they want their high school students to go to college. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's got to be 90-95% of RHP students, no matter how small that student body is, does go on to graduate college. And is that still kind of the philosophy in the high school academically?
Yeah, definitely. And our seniors this year, a lot of them are going to Cal State schools, UC schools. A lot of them are going to community colleges. So there's definitely, we're not a typical college prep school with everybody trying to get into the Ivy Leagues and things like that. But just finding that path and knowing, where they're headed, more in the sense of like what their calling is and how they're going to serve in the future. And whether that's starting at a junior college and moving on from there, or going big to one of the, more competitive schools, we try to just, my philosophy was always just find the best fit for the student. And I think, we've had a really good success rate with kids graduating. And
yeah, I'm always, obviously preaching about my school and everything, my alma mater, but it's like, you won't get a better high school experience at Rio, and we'll get into more of that, but like, you do get that hands-on approach. It is a college prep school. The difference in Rio, I would say, is that I try to tell people, oh, you went to some private school. It's like, no, Rio is completely different than any other private school out there. It's very hands-on. It makes good students great students. It makes average students good students. It makes poor students above average students. That is kind of, in my opinion, the philosophy. And you have a PhD. You started at community college, like a lot of Rio students do. It's not where you start; it's how you finish.
Exactly. Yeah, and finding, not necessarily the job that's going to make you the most money, but the job that's going to kind of fulfill that calling in your life of, serving others. Because we work so hard to build character and getting them that leadership mentality in high school. And we want to take that with them into their future career. So, yeah.
Has it been a challenge over the years when, you're dealing with guys like me who are just all, sports, I can worry about school later, and balance? Rio is so athletically motivated, boys and the girls side of sports, that academics sometimes, I don't know, they get in the way, but it's up to people like you to kind of keep everyone on the right track and make academics a bigger priority.
I think you're kind of a classic example of a Rio Hondo Prep student that, you do the school to get to the sports in the afternoon, but we use that as a tool, right? It's like the coaches are working with the teachers to make sure they're doing okay in their classes and, doing the best they can. And the teachers communicate with the coaches like, hey, this guy's got to get it together so they can play. So those kind of two parts working together is really a big part of the way we've been successful, especially with, just taking those average students, but challenging them physically, spiritually, mentally, to rise to the challenge.
Now, being the college counselor, that was your specialty for so many years. Do you feel that Rio Hondo Prep students at times had an advantage over maybe other students in the college application process because everyone plays sports, everyone does some type of musical instrument, there's AP classes available, you can also participate in an arts or drama department. The long list of extracurricular activities that RHP students is coaching, volunteering, does all of that kind of take a Rio Hondo Prep student and really make them jump off the page to colleges? Absolutely.
Our kids' resumes stand out above and beyond most average students. And one good example is we've had huge success with our students that go to the Cal State schools. They have what are called President's Scholarship programs, where they try to, take a few students who could go to a much better school but choose a Cal State for whatever reason, finances or just their major, whatever. And just about every year we have students earn, full rides, get in these great programs where they get privileges and registration and all that stuff because they've got a huge list of extracurriculars and leadership experience, and it makes a huge difference. And this year, or the last couple of years, there's been a huge shakeup in college admissions where they took away the testing requirement of the SAT and ACT. And there's good and bad to that. But the thing about not having the testing is all they have to go on is grades and extracurriculars. So now it's like our students have, this great resume that gives them a huge advantage to get into school. So not only are they, just for admissions purposes, but once they're in, they just do so well because they're prepared, they're independent. So it's working out really well.
Well, a classic example is, this upcoming senior class, Ryan McCullough is a top-notch football player, but from talking to his coaches, it's not so much what he does on the field. What this guy's done in the classroom has really given him a lot of options, and schools have been looking at him, and the schools are kind of like, usually me knowing this being in college athletics before, is there's a lot of obstacles with players and students sometimes. And it's guys like Ryan who has just excelled through Rio, everything that's been thrown at him. He's a top-notch student. He's probably a better student than he is a football player.
Yeah. And it's exciting for us to have Ryan to, get those opportunities. We haven't had a lot of, Division I players, but I think the coaches are really impressed with, the kind of student he is and the preparation he's had. I think that's, given him a huge advantage in getting some of those offers. So.
Well, what are some of possible changes to the RHP curriculum? Back when I went in, everyone played an instrument or was in a drama or something. But then I remember we added this AR reading period towards the end of my high school career. We were like, what is, we have to read for 30 minutes a day? Like, so tragic, right? But, in the long run, it was a good thing. I mean, what is your typical curriculum for high school kids these days? Anything different or special?
We're still focused on the basics, being such a small school, we don't offer, hundreds of options. We do have, several AP classes, so students can really excel at that. We still have the AR program, but our big incentive is if students are getting good enough grades, they get to skip that and have a double lunch period. So that's a little motivator. But we focus on the basics, and everything we teach is what they need for college. We haven't had any major shakeups in the curriculum, although we are, we've got some ideas out there, but, it really comes from our teachers initiating any, changes they want to make. So I think in the next few years, we'll probably see some things, but I couldn't tell you exactly what they'll do.
Well, another thing that's very unique at Rio, and I don't know if there's any exceptions, but I would say the majority of the teachers there, they themselves went through the Rio Hondo Prep program. They went through the curriculum. They kind of understand, they have a better feel, I would say, than other teachers would at other schools who don't exactly know what the kids are going through. They know what the kids can, how much they can take, how much they can tolerate, just workload wise and stuff. So I think that is a big help to the credit of the great teachers who work under you.
Yeah, and it's, being such a small school and knowing what's going on, it's really good to be able to work together. We've got a playoff game or something we got to work around, or the drama performance, and the teachers, can work to adjust to make it, feasible for these guys to do everything they're doing. Because these students it's impressive what they accomplished. I was talking to some parents, my youngest daughter's in the Carry Through program for their last summer. And we were with a group of parents, and they were just talking about their observations of the high school kids who are their assistant coaches. And they're just so impressed because they'll see their coaches out there coaching on Saturdays and the weekdays. And then they'll come and see them playing, in their own varsity sports or performing in their drama production, and just realizing how much these guys do and how well they carry themselves. That's I think what is the makes me feel the best about what our students are doing.
Yeah. And, I graduated in 2003, almost 20 years ago. And I still think of those 4 years like they were yesterday. And I do know this, the moment your first day of school as a freshman tell you turn that tassel on your hat as a senior, it's a blink of an eye and everything is such a blur. But again, it feels like it was yesterday and not 20 years ago. So I say this to Mark, I say this to everyone who comes on the podcast. I say, you will never get a better high school experience than Rio Hondo Prep. You just do so much in a short amount of time. It prepares you so much for life, and I stand by it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about your days before you were Principal Johnson. At one point, for everybody, they, just those who went through the Carry Through Rio Hondo program, you started this crazy sports league, Carry Youth League. I know you had a brother, Matt Keeler. What was the timeline? When did you begin Carry Youth League? How did you discover it?
So I joined in about second grade. I had gone to some sports camp in the summer, and they said, you should take up a sport. And so we found Carry Youth League. In the old days, the Carry Youth League bus would just kind of do these pickups at schools around the area. So they came to my school, Emperor School, and there was a whole corps of us that just got on the bus every, a couple times a week and rode to Care. And I just loved it. I just loved the leaders were just really supportive. And Mrs. Barbara Taylor was my first leader. And I just remembered she was like kind of a strict, teacher type person, but I just totally was enthralled by her and wanted to just like do whatever she, said. I don't remember much about sports in those age and at that age, but I grew up through the program, had Mrs. Sandy Smith, Pam Martin, and I loved doing all the different sports, and my brother got really into it. He joined, a couple years after me when he got old enough, and we were just Care kids, through and through. So, and then when I was in seventh grade, I went to Oak Avenue School in Temple City. I really wanted to come to Rio, but my family really couldn't afford it. So I went to school a year at Oak, but I was still part of my friends were all at Rio. I was done with Care at that point, but I would come and just be part of their activities and stuff. And I would even practice with them and play with them. And those days, I guess they didn't really have strict rules, but they let me play on their team, the Rio team. And I played a volleyball game against Oak Avenue as an Oak Avenue student for Rio Hondo Prep.
There you go. I love it. The loyalty started early. That's awesome.
I didn't make the Oak Avenue team, so then I came on the Rio team, and I'm pretty sure we beat them. So.
Oh, I love it. Incentive. Oh, right. That's great stuff. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's fantastic.
So then I wanted, I really wanted to come to Rio, and I again, couldn't afford it. So my coach at the time was Pam Martin, and she just fought for me to be there. And we did yard sales. I sold candy And we made it happen for that first year. And once I started, I had a great aunt who, just was a big part of my life. And she saw how much I wanted to come to the school and that it could be such a good support for me and my brother, who kind of had just a rough family situation. And so she started supporting us so I could be here. And that was the rest is history, I guess.
Started when?
Sorry. I went to Oak Avenue as a 7th grader, but when I came to Rio, I was also a 7th grader. I don't know if you know the story of the.
Oh, I did hear the everyone redshirted apparently, to put it in exactly. Sports terms.
So they had everybody start back a year. So in high school, you got, you're a little bit older, a little bit. I don't know if it was a sports thing or I don't know exactly the history of where that started. But when I entered high school, they changed that. So my class, entering 9th grade, had to either continue as kind of a year behind or jump up to the next class. So I actually jumped up to the next class because that's what my family wanted me to do, just. Yeah. Financially, it was easier for me to just do 1 year less. So,
well, let me ask you about something you touched on there about, I think the number one issue with kids going to Rio that comes up I would say number 2 is distance. Sometimes I was, an East kid, I was 15 miles away or whatever, but I would say the cost is something that comes up immediately for a lot of kids. And I can't afford that, or we can't afford that. And there's just been so many students over the years who have kind of been in that situation, and the organization, the school, Rio, the people, the leaders, they are willing to work with students to help. There's no, free passes or anything, but help kids find work, help them earn their way in. And that's to me, unlike any school out there. Other schools, I will leave it at that. They don't quite do that. But what are your thoughts on that? It's something you had to do, and I'm sure even today there's opportunities for kids that maybe do have financial issues.
Yeah. So, first of all, our tuition, if you compare it to any other private school that's doing what we're doing, is it's really affordable to charge. But, we're taking kids from the CARE program who often are from, just middle class, not necessarily college educated families. So it's a huge burden. So we do, we offer financial aid that's based on, their need. We also offer scholarships. So we have what's called the CARE Merit Scholarship. So kids who are, faithful to the program, doing assistant leadership, doing, everything that we expect a good member to do. We offer scholarships for that, and we'll work with any family that really wants to be here to find a way to make it happen. And we've got a lot of great members that it's a struggle, but they we work with them to find a way, and it ends up being a really good experience for them, especially when they have to earn a little bit, so they're invested themselves. So overall, it's a really great opportunity.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, I love that word earn. It's good to learn that at an early age. And I know I did, I was blessed with great parents who pushed me and definitely made me earn my fair share of things at times. And so it's great to hear that Rio continues that, assistance, we'll say options for families out there that are seeking it, that really want to be there. So that is absolutely great. Mrs. Johnson, you go into high school, and high school sports, academics. Everything is a lot more serious then. You happen to be in high school in a kind of an era at Rio where there were some pretty good sports teams in the boys and girls department. So tell me about your high school experience.
So I wish I could tell you I was super athlete right in the starting line of every sport, but I was more of a support player on one of those great teams, our basketball team. So we, my graduating class, there was no class above us, and there was a small class above them. So when I was in 10th grade, the 10th graders were the varsity, basically, and 9th and 10th graders were varsity players. So we had the opportunity to really build, as a team. And by the time we were juniors and seniors, did really well. So our basketball team, Pauline Camden, now Murphy, Lindy, Lenny Jo, Noel and Alana Hampton, Michelle Johnson, they were just like the core of the team and just really intense, really, as a team, we were just really, together, united because we played together for so long. So it was really fun to be a part of that. And in those days, we'd go into the playoffs and there'd be road trips that would be, way up Northern California or, Middle California. So we'd take a couple days off school to go, I feel like there was a couple months there where I don't remember being in the classroom because it was like boys basketball team one day and the girls basketball team the next week, and we're just on the road the whole time. So it was a lot of fun.
It's a good problem to have, right? We can catch up with school later. Let's go win some playoff games. What do you remember about that championship season? Where was that championship game at? You just mentioned a bunch of great players there. I'll say their maiden names just because Pauline Hampton, Lindy Jo, and the other Hampton's sisters and such. But where was that championship game? Do you remember who you guys played?
Matt, I have blocked all that.
I hear you.
I remember the moment. I remember the feeling. I couldn't tell you anything about the teams. But you got to go to Mrs. Murphy and Mrs. Joe because they will remember all those stories.
Okay, not a problem. I can definitely. I'll get them on here very, very soon and chat about it. I asked this question because I knew a lot of guys that knew Mr. Johnson, Randall Johnson, who was your coach on that team, who ended up being father-in-law. You married his son, Randy, down the road. But what was Mr. Johnson like what was he like as a girls basketball coach? I'm not saying this I don't know how else to say it. Like, we all knew him as kind of a tough-nosed football coach. And then for him to go coach girls basketball was kind of like, can you be the same guy or not? What was he like as a girls basketball coach?
So I think he was different with the girls than with the boys, but it was definitely a challenge, like for girls emotionally to back up and come under him. But you just knew that he loved you and supported you. So even when he was yelling at you, or he most of the time it would be like a sarcastic comment, that would, if you were sensitive, would like kind of hurt your feelings. But then you just like, okay, he's doing it in love, he's just trying to challenge you in a fun, way. So, I think being with him for several years, you really got to understand his way of communicating and, working with girls. Obviously, I enjoyed that side of him because my husband's very much the same. Just got that personality. So had I known he was going to be my father-in-law, I probably would have practiced a little harder in basketball.
That is great.
It was my favorite sport. And I kind of, again, I was on that team with all these great players. And I was kind of like, well, I'll be the cheerleader.
Hey, bring that team GPA up, right? Yeah, exactly. It'd be that, contribute any way you can. Hey, role players.
I cookies for the pregame, dinners.
Hey, it's every piece of the puzzle that needs to be in there, Oh, that is great. Randall Johnson Sr. and your husband are both very fluent in sarcasm.
Yes.
They've always been. What's it like? Most guys know your husband, Randy. He's that way all the time, even with you and the family?
So it's interesting. He's not at all that way with me. I don't know I don't know why, because I don't mind it. And he's got one pretty sensitive daughter who he learns to kind of negotiate that. So he really has a very sweet and kind side, but I love the sarcastic, cynical side as well. So.
Well, I'll tell you this: when he was an athletic trainer before he was coaching, calling the plays in the football games, he was the athletic trainer. And man, you want to talk about bedside manner? That's Mr. Johnson. He goes, what do you got? Wussitis? What is wrong with you? Like.
I love it.
He was very just to the point. I'll say this: he made the boys tougher. I'll tell you that much.
He's mellowed a little because I know he doesn't want, kids going out there with concussions the way they may have done in the old days. But yeah, he wants everybody to, obviously be healthy, but do their best and keep fighting. So.
What's it like for you? Principal or non-principal, but going to Rio Hondo football games are very special. All athletics there are, but Rio football kind of stands apart a little bit. And your husband's out there calling the plays. I mean, do you watch the game from that standpoint? Like, oh, he just called that play, or do you even care, or you just kind of like watching everything and he's doing his thing?
Yeah. I kind of let him do his thing. I love watching football, but I'm not a great student of the game, so I just kind of cheer from a very general standpoint. But he'll sometimes talk about, actually, I usually hear more about the games from other people, about what Randy did or plays called and stuff. They'll talk about it. Randy, he never really talks about it. Afterwards, he's kind of that's his thing he does at school. But mostly I go to the games and I love the atmosphere. I love, just watching the kids that I teach, out there on the field, just to see that other side of them. But I'm mostly a distant spectator. Yeah.
I think I've seen you and, Claudia Kars, maybe the coaches' wives kind of walking around, and they're, now that you're principal though, you got a little more, I don't know. Yeah. You're a person. You're a big. Oh, there's Mr. Principal Johnson. A little different.
It's a different vibe at the games. Like people, it's a little more.
Definitely, for sure. Well, Randy does an outstanding job with the boys, in football, and just a great guy. Speaks that sarcasm and such that we talked about. But man, what your kids? You see, you had a senior, an upcoming senior, sophomore, and now a seventh grader. So you got Principal Johnson and then sarcastic football coach Dad in under one roof there. That's got to make for quite the household.
Yeah. So my kids are very much like my husband. They're just really all sports all the time. And they love, just being really competitive. And he's great with them because he's really not all about winning. And he makes that clear. Like, he doesn't care if they win a game, but he's really good with them at just getting them in the mindset to be competitive and have fun. And I think they really do. And they weren't blessed with great athletic genes necessarily, but they've got that Johnson work ethic, and so they're really enjoying. They're just 100% Rio. Got that care philosophy of just working hard and having fun and being part of the team. So it's been really fun watching them the last few years growing up.
How did they take to how did your kids take to the announcement of hey, Mom's going to be principal? I mean, was it like, oh no, or was it like, cool, Mom? Like,
yeah, that was an interesting conversation. I was very worried about it. Like, because my kids are very independent, and even when coming from Pearl Prep into Rio, it's like, oh, I got to be on Mom's campus, like, just like keep your distance. And I try to really respect them, and I will always have I'm at school, I'm the teacher, at home I'm mom, and I try to keep those boundaries. But it was definitely like a little bit of a like, what? You're doing what, Tom? And I think if you ask them today, I haven't asked them recently, but I think they're kind of okay with it. And again, it's nice to have Edwin as the vice principal, so he does most of the interaction. My kids aren't in the principal's office every day, at least so far. So, but if, he kind of takes care of that kind of stuff. So if there was anything that, administration wise, I have that buffer. So, they're just, I think they're probably embarrassed by me sometimes, but
that's what moms do. It's all good. That's their job. You got, your oldest daughter, she's got that senator name, future senator, Reagan Kennedy Johnson. And then your son, Landry. Now that was after Tom Landry, right?
That Landry Bryant. So Tom Landry and Bear Bryant. Wow. Ironically, my daughter has absolutely no interest in politics. And my son, he's got the mind for football. We're still waiting for the growth spurt, to get him on the field. But he might be a coach someday, so he might fulfill that Landry.
And then what's your youngest name?
Bryce.
Bryce.
So we
Very
went
cool.
So it's Bryce McKinley. So we just we got Reagan, the president, right? Then we have Landry Bryant Johnson, that's LBJ. So we tied in the little president thing. And so just for fun with Bryce, her middle name is McKinley. So we had Bryce McKinley, like for the national parks, except for Mount McKinley now has a different name, Denali. So we blew that one. But
wow. I don't know if all parents put this much thought into the names as you guys do, but that's impressive.
We had fun with it. We wanted to just, sometimes I think, did I give my kids names that are too weird, but too late now.
No, too late. It works for him. I remember you guys topped the Reagan Kennedy Johnson with Landry Bryan. I went, oh, I bet I know who picked that one. That was good. That was great stuff. Oh my goodness. Having too much fun. So great experience at Rio. Would you say you're still able to talk to today's students about your experience? Can you still relate to the kids as they are now, even though, it's been 20 years for me, a little more for you, but like, it still feels like, I should ask you, does it still feel like yesterday when you were in high school and fast forward? Yeah,
it totally does. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but you can do the math. It's unbelievable. I'm like, am I really that old? Because I feel like I was, 20 yesterday. And high school does seem a little bit farther away now, especially now that I have high school students, kids myself. But I love just getting to know where the kids are. I'm not a big like social media type person, so I have a little bit of a disconnect there sometimes, but I try to just kind of joke about it and let them think I'm out of it. And,
That's good. That's probably a good thing. A disconnect there. We should all disconnect a little.
Yeah.
Let me ask about after high school. It all ends for us at some point, and it's like it's everything to us. What am I going to do now? I'll go to college. But did you know exactly what path you wanted to go in college, or did you kind of just try everything? What was kind of life like for you after high school?
So I had no idea what I was going to do. It was a couple of years ago, Mrs. Orsburn had found, she must have been cleaning out her files or something, and found something I'd written as a high school student where I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to be a teacher. So that was not my plan. And so I ended up, majoring in psychology and getting a doctorate in educational psychology, but I didn't, going into college, I didn't even know what psychology was. So I was just, I went to college just like, I liked school. So I figured, I'll take some classes, figure out what I want to do, and kind of just led towards that path, and just really enjoyed learning about how people think and learn, and, got really into that. And then I ended up going to graduate school, and just took a lot of twists and turns on my journey, but ended up having a degree in education that was perfect for what I'm doing now. So
isn't it so funny how we say, I don't know how many times I've said in my life, I'll never do that. I'm not doing that. And you end up doing it years later, and you're like, oh, that's funny. God laughs at us when these things happen. But so why I ask only because I don't know many students that went to UC Riverside. What made you go out to UC Riverside? There's a ton of great options here in California, but what made Riverside stand out to you?
So I started at PCC because I didn't really know what I was doing. When it came time to transfer, so I was in RHLA, and really, my life was centered around Carey-Lee, Rio Hondo Prep already. My friends were all here. So I wanted to still be a part of that. But, education was important to me. I considered UCLA. I kind of had a couple friends that were doing that, but, for me to do that and still be part of care wasn't really going to work. So I ended up going to Riverside, which is actually farther but it's kind of against traffic. So,
yeah.
And back in that day, gas was 89 cents a gallon. So you could do that. So it's like almost exactly 50 miles each way. So it's 100 miles round trip. I couldn't do that now and commute. But I really liked it because it was a UC campus, which is a little more, prestigious, competitive, a lot of, the things I wanted, but it was small. It's a lot bigger now, but it just felt a lot more intimate. And I really got to know professors, had a lot of opportunities to be part of research groups. And that's what led me into my graduate work, because I just got to really dive in and be part of things. So I'm really glad I chose it. But, when I tell kids now, I give them the options for applying to colleges and I say UC Riverside, they're like, it's mostly because it's like in the middle of nowhere, right? It's just like out in the desert. It's not any better or worse than like UC Santa Barbara, but Santa Barbara is right on the beach. So of course that's going to be what people want to get to.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah. So ended up being a good decision. I ended up going back there as a graduate student, mostly because they had exactly the program I needed, and it was offered in the afternoon. So I was going to graduate school while I was teaching. So I was probably teaching you Latin while I was like doing my homework in between, because I was trying to like balance all that. But it made it possible because I could teach all day and then go to school in the afternoons, evenings, and make it work. So.
Wow, that's great stuff. Yeah, I've been on that campus a few times. The UC Riverside, it's definitely grown quite a bit since a few years ago. But now you really can't go wrong with colleges here in California, Southern California specifically. And I think Rio is fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of options, because some kids, they want to I want to go far away. Some kids, they want a Cal State, a JC, or a UC. And it's like pretty much have everything you desire here. And do you find that, especially with your college counselor work that you did, the fact that, like most kids, you didn't know what you wanted to do. You started community college. You kind of went to a school that was different do you feel like that experience really helped you be better at the college counselor thing, all the different advice you had to give to so many different kids?
Yeah, for sure. Having gone to a lot of different types of schools and jumping around with my majors and stuff, it really helped. And yeah, you're right. It's like, there's so many options just in our area. So, most of our kids do just kind of stay local because they find that, some kids, want to get away, but I don't know, most of our kids just want to just stay around here and, not go too far. And it's really fun to take them. So the 10th graders, we take them to like different campuses around. Did we do that with you, or is that really not?
Oh yeah. Hey, anything to get out of class. I was all for it. It was great.
So we take them to a UC school, a Cal State school, a private Christian school, a private just regular liberal arts school, and they just get the range of it and see all the different options. And yeah, you right in their backyard, you can find whatever you want. So it's really nice.
Yeah. And then you went to school at Illinois for a brief time. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah. So I was at UCR doing a lot of research in my undergrad years, and I decided that's kind of what I wanted to pursue. So I went out there intending to do a PhD program. I was there for a year. And I actually did research with babies. It was fun. It was very different. But I got to live in Champaign, which is a college town. It's like, this big college just in the middle of cornfields. There's nothing else around. It's a couple hours from Chicago, a couple hours from St. Louis. But, you just got the real college experience there. I got to go to, some Illini football games, basketball games, and just be part of that. Like it feels like the Rio, football experience, but like 100 times bigger, just everybody, the whole town just descends on the football stadium on Saturdays. And it was just so fun, to be part of that experience for a little while. It was way too cold. I could not handle the winter. And ultimately I decided that wasn't really, meant for me. It's kind of the really just intense PhD program where everybody's just cutthroat and stuff. And I'm not really all about that. So ended up coming back home but it was a wild year and a great experience.
Oh, that's again. I mean, you single-handedly have been able can provide some advice for students for everything. Out of state college, UC Riverside. I mean, it's in good hands. And again, when I heard you were taking over the reins of the principal, I was like, yeah, she's perfect. She's done it all, and from an academic standpoint, can really provide some advice for all the students. So again, was all at the time you're doing college, no matter if it's undergrad or graduate work, you just feel like you're never going to finish. But looking back now, is it kind of like, man, that was all a blur?
Yeah, it was a very long blur. I went to Illinois for a year, then came back to teach, took a year off of graduate school, then went back to school, got married, decided it was just a lot. So I just took a year off again and then got back. Eventually, it took me 10 years to get my PhD on and off. So, and ultimately I only finished because my daughter was born and I'm like, I gotta finish this. So it was a long process, but it was a great experience. A lot of fun, a lot of work. But I'm really glad I did it, because at one point I was like, maybe I just won't finish. But I knew I could live with myself if I didn't get it done. So I'm glad I did. Yeah,
and in the fine print, whether it's a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, a PhD. It never says on there how many years it took. No matter how hard you look, it doesn't say. I've looked at all of them. It doesn't say the length of time served or anything. So,
and I always tell my students that it doesn't say that you started at PCC, so don't worry about that.
No, it doesn't. No, it does not. It's all about finishing. So, real quick to wrap it up, kind of here. I want to ask you about the Rio Hondo Prep enrollment, since you are in charge now, and maybe there's other, I don't know, is there an admissions department or whatever, but Rio's enrollment has always been small. You could probably only have so many students because of the campus size. What are your thoughts on maybe Rio expanding? How big could it get, or what are the obstacles in that regard? Or just talk to me about enrollment.
Yeah, so we're going through some growing pains right now. We got quite a few new students during and through the pandemic who were looking for other options. So our middle school really grew through that time, and so we're adding a couple of teachers to help support, so that our homeroom teachers aren't overwhelmed. And then we also, and it's Mark Carson that really is spearheading the admissions department. He's going out and talking to other schools and the care kids and everything. But we've had a pretty big influx from some other private schools who've heard about us as, the leadership training we do, the Christian environment we have, and that we're not just Christian, we're real, that we really do try to teach the faith by example. And a lot of parents really appreciate that. And when they've heard about that, they've been interested, and the word has been spreading. So our 9th grade next year, we've actually opened up a second class. So we've got almost 40 students, which is, for us, that's huge, Wow. Yeah. So, and word of mouth is just getting around. I get a new application every couple of days, just someone that's heard about us through a friend of a friend who's, had a good experience here. So we love that. We do, as we grow, that we want to make sure that we're still providing that, personalized experience, because that's what makes it special. Is the kids, they're not just a student that comes to school from 8 to 10 and goes home. It's all about being part of a team, really getting in and participating in different activities. And, it's not just the academic day. So as long as we can keep that mission going, we'll keep accepting as many students as we can take. So yeah.
I mean, you got to keep the foundation that has made the school great. And, I don't think Rio's ever going to compromise its values or anything, but it is cool to hear that there's a little bit more. People are open more to the idea now of kids transferring. Or for a long time, it was like you only went to Rio if you were a care youth league guy, but that's changed. And even now, with maybe even some high school, and there's been a few here and there, but it seems like it is more open, and the enrollment is definitely benefiting because of that.
Yeah, it's a hard transition for kids to go from a public school to our environment where we definitely expect a lot of out of them, and so we really try to prepare them and make sure it is the right fit. Because if they've come through the Care Youth League program, you just understand, and that's why it worked that way for so long. So when we bring in students from other schools, we really try to sit down with them and explain, you're going to be on a team. I know you've never played basketball before, but you're going to play basketball, so and sometimes it's like, yeah, this is not for me, but a lot of kids are just, willing to give it a shot, and it's worked out great for a lot of them.
Well, and finally, the international students, that's been a very big thing for Rio over the years, having kids from all over the country who've come to Rio Hondo Prep, and it's got to be funny telling, a kid from Japan or a kid from Vietnam, hey, you're going to play tackle football. You're going to be on this team. You've probably never done this before, but so that obviously is a little different. But what about the international students? Is that still something that's pretty common at Rio, or has it kind of declined a little bit?
Well, we've had a little bit of, slowdown because of COVID, kids not being able to get visas and come in the country, but that is starting to pick back up. And we really, again, try to work with them, make sure they know what they're getting into. But we've had some pretty good success with students coming in. Football's a big ask, but a lot of times they do really well in boys volleyball, even basketball. Volleyball is a good one because most boys haven't played their whole life, and so they're kind of on equal footing with some of our kids, and they can get in. And we've got some international students that really have been successful there. So we try to find a place, for everybody to succeed one way or the other.
No, that's a great way to sum up the Rio experience. I think with you at the helm, I think great things are happening, and the future is bright. I mean, you're following in some very big footsteps with Mrs. Dowd and Mrs. Orsburn, but I think you've picked up the torch quite well, and things are off to a fast start.
Thanks, Matt. It's been really fun talking to you and just like talking about the past, talking about the program. I love what you're doing with this podcast. It's been fun to listen to all the other conversations you have with other alumni, and just like what an impact the school has had on them. And it's great.
I appreciate it. It's fun to give back in some form or another, and it's nice to kind of bring people together with something. And we definitely needed that a couple of years ago, and so here we are now. And I'm excited about the new podcast coming up. A Charge to Keep. That it's mostly football centric, you know me, but I may spill into some other sports as well. We'll get kind of an RHP football radio network going here. That's the plan anyway. So I'm excited for that as well.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, give my best to the Johnson family. Looking forward to another school year, although you're a couple summer months here now where you don't have to worry too much about school, right?
Yeah. Got a little work to do.
Yeah. More work to do behind the scenes. Well, I'll let you get to it. Mrs. Johnson, thank you for helping me in Latin and algebra and all those other things, by the way. I can't thank you enough.
Thanks a lot, man. It's been fun.
I am often told by listeners of the podcast, man, you do a lot of Rio Hondo stuff. Well, it is because I am incredibly grateful for the high school that I went to, for the people, for the fellow students, the teachers, the alumni. I mean, it's all one big family. We've all gone different directions in life, but it's nice to have that common thread. And I will say that Rio Hondo Prep is in great hands with Dr. Marsha Johnson leading the way as principal. Her first year was definitely one that was memorable, we'll say, starting off in the fall of 2021. But she's doing great stuff, and Rio has some really big things ahead of them. And I'm just really happy to see someone like Mrs. Johnson. At one time, Ms. Keeler, my Latin teacher, my algebra teacher. Oh, I don't know how she helped me pass, guys. I got to tell you, all the teachers I bring on here, I owe them so much gratitude. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today doing a podcast in the middle of the day. That didn't sound right. But anyway, Dr. Johnson, thank you so much. Randy Johnson, her husband, you're next, man. I got to get you on here. I want to talk Rio Hondo offense. So you can make fun of me. You can do whatever you want. I was a wuss back then. Didn't have much of a pain tolerance, and you toughened me up. Maybe not enough, but anyway. Hey, let's have you on here. Talk some Rio Hondo Prep football. That would be great. Anyway, Dr. Johnson, can't thank you enough. Keep leading the charge for the Rio Hondo Prep. The way of life, the Rio Hondo Prep experience. I'm going to keep talking good about my school as long as people will listen. And I'm excited for everything they have and moving forward. Guys, I'll wrap up today's show and our week of shows. There's only 2 of them usually, Tuesdays and Fridays. Tuesday, just me rambling away about my opinions on things. Just me, just my opinions, just my thoughts, random thoughts, if you will. And then Fridays, I like to calm it down and have a nice conversation with someone like I did today with Dr. Marsha Johnson. Have already recorded some other episodes, have some great Fridays lined up. So if you don't want to listen to me ramble away about what's going on in the world, that's fine. I get that. Just set aside some Fridays, because usually it's just a nice conversation with someone, not always Rio Hondo Prep affiliated, but at times it is. So today was, and there will be a lot more Rio Hondo talk in the future. As I mentioned in the podcast, I do have a new podcast that is already out and ready to go. It's called A Charge to Keep. First episode is out. We're working on getting a few more here. It is a podcast specifically dedicated to Rio Hondo Prep football. I will also talk other Rio Hondo athletics throughout the year, but it is specifically for the Rio Hondo Prep football program, a weekly a recap of games, kind of a look back at Rio's history and things of that nature. You don't want to miss that. It's very similar to what I did last year on this podcast on the Mondays episodes during the Rio Hondo season. Anyway, check that out if you haven't already. Like, subscribe, follow, all those good things. There's a YouTube channel. We're on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, much like you listen to this show here. So give us a like and a follow. Give me some feedback. Always love hearing from you guys. Get Home Safe Podcast at yahoo.com is the best way to reach me there. And let me know if you listen on Spotify. Go ahead and click on the link there, or answer the question there. What was your favorite part of today's podcast? As I will continue to put that out on our Spotify podcast specifically. But guys, that's it for me. Appreciate Dr. Johnson. Appreciate Rio Hondo Prep. Already excited for next week's episodes. But for now, I need to take a breather, enjoy the weekend, and recharge the batteries. Guys, as always, no matter what you're doing, whether you're out on the town or around in third base, get home safe.